So we're going to talk about pitfalls and perils of entrepreneurship, right? And we've just been discussing this before we hit the record button, which is what prompted hitting the record button. Because I think that one of the earliest pitfalls that people fall into is they underestimate how much money they need before they make their first sale. So whether or not they're actually making something, a good, something to produce, or even if it's themselves, their time that they're selling, that they underestimate how long it's going to take them and how much it's going to cost them before they get to their first sale. What do you
I
think?
agree.
What's one of the
I,
early pitfalls that an entrepreneur will fall into that you've seen?
I think it's that they get ahead of themselves very quickly, and they visualize they have a business that's all running smoothly, as you rightly say, that they have got their sales engine running and they've got customers receiving their product or service, but they don't realize what it takes to get to the start line. And then even once you start making your first sale, the time it will take for money to actually come into the business, and recognizing that the flow of cash through your business, cash flow to any person thinking from an accounting perspective, is essentially the most important uh, element of how you run your business to make it work into the medium and long term.
I think
And
you even
it's
blogged about that, didn't you,
we
John?
did blog about
Where
that,
you,
yes.
you blogged about that because I'll never forget what you said because I've actually repeated it many times. And you said, uh, um, revenue is vanity, cash flow is
Yes,
sanity, something like that.
very close. Yeah. So this comes from a famous investor, Jim Rohn, who said, and it's been quoted many times. So he's saying that turnover is vanity. How much money you're
That's
bringing into the business. Profit, or your margin is sanity, but cash flow is the reality of your business. And so, what that means in practice, you could say, well, I've sold £100,000 worth of product or service. Isn't that amazing? But you've not really explained to people what the cost has been to do that. So how much have you had to spend to get that 100,000? And even when you have a margin on that, you've got to think of the variable cost and then the fixed costs of running your business. So the variable costs may be sort of search engine optimization payments. It may be things you have to do for an individual sale for a new client, but underlying you have to pay costs per year for your accountant, for your, maybe if you've got a premises, for your any of your technology you're using, and a whole range of other things, all your fixed costs. And you've got to understand those and then see it running through. And as you quite rightly said, Andrew, you've got to make sure you've got enough money to get that running and operating. One of the businesses, I have sort of two or three elements to my own business, but one of them is a property side. And I had to spend a lot of money right at the beginning to get the properties I was purchasing both purchased, refurbished, ready for rent before a single penny of rent started coming in. And while I had done lots of projections of how much per month and year revenue, and I had actually done the projections of all the costs, but it's one thing to do the projections, and it's another to see your bank account go down and down and down and down and down before the first bit of money starts coming in, and then before you start making any profit, and having a build up of cash in the bank as well.
and I think it's a common problem even amongst people who you think should actually understand the concepts of revenue, turnover, profit, that kind. I've seen on Dragon's Den many times where people come in there and a dragon will go, you know, so how much money did you make last year? And they'll go, £100,000. And they'll go, revenue or profit? And they go,
And they
well, we
pause
sold
and say,
£100,000. They're going, no, but what's your profit? What's your margin? And they go, well, this is what, and they start stumbling, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, how are you standing in front of the dragons and you don't know the difference between turnover, gross profit, net profit, what your margins are in terms of cost, what markups are,
Exactly.
things like that.
And the fixed and variable costs is such an important element. So, particularly as if you have a business where you're going to need to recruit people, where you may need to travel to events, where you may need to prepare brochures or websites or digital content or whatever it may be, or physical products and services for that matter. And understanding what is the individual cost per unit of something you're going to be providing versus the fixed costs that you're going to incur whether you make a sale or not. So all these different components have to be well understood, and you have enough money to fund those elements right from the get-go, which is often why you and I have both recommended to people around starting small or considering side hustles while you have a steady income coming from something else, and then just test and make sure that your business idea is working, that you can generate decent revenues, and most importantly margins on those that revenue that you're making, and you've got a business that can sustain you in the medium and long term.
And actually, it's a good point on the side hustle side, because I having met quite a few people who started a side hustle. There's quite a few people in the design world, website design, oh, we'll do some websites on the side for other people. They've got a full-time job. They might work in graphics design or something like that. And on the side, they start doing websites for people. And they seriously underprice themselves because a lot of their costs are already taken care of by the fact that they've got a full-time job. So when somebody says, oh, how much will it cost to do a website? The person goes, well, how many hours is it going to take me? Okay, I'm going to charge X amount per hour. Here's the price of a website. And then they start thinking, oh, this is really good business. I'm making a lot more money here than my full-time job. So they quit their full-time job. But then what they suddenly realize is, hang on a minute, their full-time job came with a company car. Now they don't have a car. So now if they need to get places, they actually, or maybe their season ticket, maybe they were getting everywhere by public transport, but they had a season ticket that was being funded through work, and they didn't actually take that into their costings. And actually, because their salary was already paying their mortgage and their bills and everything like that, they hadn't taken any of those costs into account when coming up with their hourly rate that they're going to charge. And they leave their full-time job and they suddenly go, oh man, I've got all these costs that I haven't thought about when working out what my hourly rate should be and how much money I need to earn each month in order to be. They just thinking of, because at the end of the day, if they already got a full-time job and all of those other expenses are paid for, the side hustle is just cherry on the top. It's basically, it's extra money for their time. But suddenly if you give up your full-time job and your side hustle becomes your key business. And I met one guy who, he was actually doing website design for people. And he had been doing a couple, during the month, and he thought, this is a good idea. I'm going to quit my corporate job. I've had enough of this. I'm going to be going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to set up my own business and things like this. And he turned around to me and he went, wow, I didn't realize how hard it was to find clients. He said, because when I was working full time, the company used to bring the clients all the time. And then on the side, I'd pick up some extra ones. And he went, but the company was getting maybe 10 new clients a month. Now that he's on his own and he's done the things, the little sidelines, now he needs to be doing, 3 or 4 chunky size websites a month or something like that. He didn't realize how much effort it was going to take to actually go out and prospect for business. So this isn't even where he's manufacturing something. He's not buying and reselling goods and adding up a margin. What he hadn't calculated into the cost of what he's going to charge clients is the amount of time he's going to spend not earning money from designing websites, because he now has to do sales himself. He has to do marketing in the first place. He has to get his name out there. He had to build his own website for himself so that he's got his own brand. He had to develop that. Then he realized that while he was really good at doing websites, he wasn't that good at marketing. So now he had to pay a marketing person to come in, and all of these things started cascading. And I bumped into him about 6 months after he had left his full-time job, and he just went, this was the biggest mistake I've ever made, because I hadn't realized how much more there was involved to making a sale, securing the client. And he said, and even when I've made the sale and secured the client, most of the people that I'm working with, the money only comes 3 months after I've finished the job.
I
And
think that's a very important point, and obviously we don't want to worry people too much at this early stage, but these are pitfalls that can be planned for and to avoid. And I think just sticking with the kind of the startup and getting building momentum phase, it's also having provision for if you're invoicing clients, if you don't get the money up front, if your business is relying on submitting an invoice and then getting that money back, you're going to have a proportion of clients, probably small proportion, who pay very quickly. Another bulk of people who pay with a little bit of chasing and prompting. And then there may be another, hopefully smallish proportion, but ones who will be very difficult to get the money from, where you have to repeatedly chase. And the danger is that those ones could be big paying clients. And I've spoken to a number of entrepreneurs over the years, and they said the thing they didn't plan for, like a pitfall they would, if they could turn back the clock and go and work through, is to test new clients, particularly if they're going to be repeat clients, to make sure they understood if they were good payers, quick payers, and regular, without having to chase up. They've built up big kind of sort of positions with people where they're now dependent on those people paying their invoices when they've done a lot of work for them, and they've not sort of managed that. It's all around the cash flow piece again. But when you work in full time for someone else, provided that business is sound, you're going to get your salary every month on a certain date, and you can plan things around it. When you're in business, you're the person having to chase and make sure that your money is coming in. You can you can kind of model it and put it into spreadsheets and all those good things, but it rarely calculates other human behavior of people just choosing not to pay you, or forgetting, or needing to be chased repeatedly. So I think that's an important pitfall to, you can provision for and have just some extra sort of contingency in your cash flow to account for that, I think.
I think that we can spitball and brainstorm a few more pitfalls of entrepreneurship to discuss in the weeks that come.